Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin, and I wanted to get in with you and do a quick podcast for this week. I'm about to lead a retreat from Friday to Tuesday, my Activate Your Inner Healer retreat. We have 15 people coming, which is very exciting because we kind of had like the attendance shoot up last minute, which was great. So it's at a private location in Bradenton. I rented out a nice Airbnb. We have a private chef and all the fixins of emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual healing, along with a special guest that's going to be joining us, who some of you might know from my podcast. Ken Lloyd is going to be there. So it's really, the people who signed up didn't know all this was going to happen. I always try to over deliver. So if you're curious about any of my programs, just so you know, I always try to over deliver. And speaking of programs, we have yoga teacher training coming up in February. End of February, if you're interested, it is a personal development course. It is a life transformation course. And at the end of it, you will be a 200-hour yoga teacher, certified and ready to teach. And so I make sure that you have all those aspects mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So I'm going to hop right in. And I want to talk about how constraints can make for creativity. So in any sort of medium, if you just have a blank canvas, sometimes you don't know where to go with it because there's no like theme, there's no constraints. But if you start with like, okay, I have a blank canvas and this has to be, something having to do with plants. Okay, that wipes away a lot of the other things that you can draw or paint about, right? And then I'm going to do monochromatic plants. Okay, so then that sort of changes like the shadowing and stuff. So that would create constraints. And then maybe within that, you would have some sort of other constraint like limitation, like it has to be in little dots. Okay, then you're going to have something more like a Monet. What I find, at least for me, and I find this well with my clients too, is if there's too many options, you have what's called the Cheesecake Factory menu. Trademark that. That's I came up with that, but you all know what I'm talking about. Is like there's too many options and you get decision fatigue. And once you create those constraints, then it simplifies things, but it allows you to go deeper and focus your creativity. So another example is I have my client Sam, who's actually probably going to be showing up here in a couple of minutes, where sometimes we have the big studio room available for our yoga sessions, but other times we have to use this small room that I'm actually recording this podcast in. And what we have found is that the constraints make for creativity. Why? Because, well, there's not enough space for me to take a full practice with him next to him. I have to get up, I have to walk around, I have to change the angle of my mat, which causes me to see different things about him, which, there's certain poses that we have to modify and adapt depending on, the space and like where he's facing. But it allows for a certain creativity to come out because we have those limitations. It almost allows like little problem solving mechanisms to come up. And some of the greatest questions that I like to ask myself is, how can I make this more fun? How is this moment perfect? How can I fit this into this while still honoring that? For me, that gives an appropriate amount of challenge to the situation and allows us to also use our critical thinking skills of thinking outside the box, right? Another example, and a yoga example. So when I was teaching yoga a lot more like residential places, there sometimes would be a couch. And so it's like, oh gosh, we don't have this floor space, but we do have a couch. Okay, so then we sit down on the couch and we start doing couch yoga. Sounds made up, kind of is. But if yoga is a practice of being present and a moving meditation, you can really do it anywhere. So then we found that doing couch yoga, that there were certain poses that you could do on a couch which were kind of better than doing them without a couch, right? Like chair yoga. There's a couple of poses in chair yoga because you can grab the back of the chair and use that as a little bit of a lever. Because you have the elevated surface, you could put one foot there and really get into a deep hip opener. So there's certain constraints that allow core freedoms. Now, if we apply this to the broadness of our life, for example, if it is non-negotiable that from 8 to 8, let's say 8 to 8, 12 hour period, I am going to allow phone usage. But before that and after that, nope, not allowed. So then what happens is, well, we get creative with like when we're doing certain things, especially if it's non-negotiable, meaning we're not going to break that promise to ourselves. I'm going to make sure that, I set an alarm. It's 7:45. I got to check my schedule for tomorrow. So I have like all my, if I need to make lunch or prepare my outfit, so on and so forth. Oh, I'm taking a yoga class. Oh, I have a surprise meeting. I can have that prepared in my mind, but I'm not just mindlessly like picking something up and like, right, which a lot of people do. So, and then in the morning, rather than that be the first thing you grab for, there's constraints. So it opens up the freedoms of my life. So then how am I going to direct that energy? Well, for me, every morning I make some hot tea. I boil my water. And then after that, I have a yerba mate. And then I do some meditation, either doing brain tap, I've been doing that a lot lately, or candlelight meditation. I do some kind of movement, either it's walking, mindful walking, some sort of yoga practice, martial arts, or a mix of all of them. Sometimes on my walk, I'll stop at a park and I'll start doing weird martial arts and mix it into yoga. So having that constraint of like, okay, I have this time period, how can I make it work? And just make it work. It is amazing when we're pushed a little bit like into the fire, how it refines us. And so I'm saying a lot of times we're afraid of those constraints, or we feel like they're limitations, and they're gonna like we think scarcity and limited, and oh, if I only had this. But if you take a step back from that, because that's victim mindset, you take a step back from that, you say, oh, but I have this, but I have this, but I have that. It allows you to go into a creative mindset, aka creator mindset. There is a show that I used to watch. I don't really watch too many TV shows anymore, but I like competitive shows where you grow and you learn. And so Project Runway was one of my shows, and they would give constraints. And one of them was, they'd always have like a non-traditional use of certain materials. So for example, they would give people like $100 and you go to a dollar store and you would get like, whatever materials to make an outfit based on whatever materials you got. So there was like some serious constraints there. And then use your sewing machine and come up with amazing things that you'd never look at that and be like, oh, that could be a dress someday. Like, oh, wow, that would be a top-notch outfit, right? But because of the sort of constraints, it allowed the creativity focus to be one pointed. And then from there, amazing things happen. So I'm saying that you can create that in your life. You can create that in your mind. You can create that in your yoga practice. And that these constraints and these sort of quote unquote limitations can allow for us to focus our creativity and become great creators in our life. So, little food for thought. I hope that you enjoy this podcast. It's a short but sweet one, and I hope it makes you through the week. And wish me luck. I'm going to be having an amazing weekend with some people activating their inner healer. And I'm super happy. One last thing I'll mention is that we have 3 spots left for Thailand. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I dig your vibe, Erin, I want to travel internationally with you and eat pad Thai, watch Muay Thai, and get Thai massage, then reach out to me, erin@erincoach.com. You can also go to our website, thriveyogafit.com. You can look underneath retreats and you'll see Thailand right there. So 3 spots left, y'all. Once they're gone, they're gone. All right, have a great week. Namaste.